In America, we produce about 2.6 billion tons of trash each year. That is a lot of trash. And on the individual scale, according to the FBA, Americans will produce about 4.4 pounds of trash each day. Isn't that a lot of trash? That's quite a bit of trash. Where can this trash end up at? How can we alter the directions in which this trash goes and where it ends up being recycled at? Well, there's a lot of ways that the individuals can help. Even though a lot of people will say it's up to the big corporations to solve this problem, it's not. The individuals can help on a smaller scale as well. So, for the trash, we we have three different outcomes for it. It can either be composted, recycled, or it can end up in a landfill. Now, composting and recycling are two methods that we'll talk about in just a second. But the landfills are filling up very, very rapidly in the United States. There's one in Albany, New York, that is estimated to fill up in around 2026. Now, in the year 2026, what happens? We have to create more landfills. Now, why are these landfills so bad? Well, the landfills will produce greenhouse gases, and the thing with greenhouse gases is that it's rapidly heating up our environment and causing other issues that I'll talk about in just a moment. But what gases are greenhouse gases? Why are landfills producing this? It's just the way that the waste is being recycled or put back into our world that produces the gases like CO2 and methane. And methane are big, big, big contributors to the greenhouse effect. Now, the greenhouse effect will have these gases, CO2 and methane, up in our air, and then it will absorb the infrared radiation. And the infrared radiation that it is absorbing will heat up our planet. Now, this is bad because it's not great for our environments. It's not great for our ecosystems. It's just not good. And another issue with these greenhouse gases is they're causing air pollution. And air pollution is also bad because it increases our health risks and our nutrition. It'll get into our waters and our food sources, our soil, what we're growing, and it's not good. It's not great. So that's why we should try to reduce the amount of trash that ends up in landfills. And as well as all of that, there's also methods that we could use to reduce the amount of trash that ends up in landfills, such as composting. Composting is personally my favorite of the two. Composting is where that we take our organic materials and we put them back into a little system, and the little system will help grind them up into a really nutritious soil that we could use for our plants and grow very nutritious food. And composting is something that I think the average person can do pretty easily because there's not really much education that goes behind it. If you have a banana peel, it's compostable. If you have an orange peel, it's compostable. Eggshells, compostable. Any food waste is compostable. And that's the best part about it, is that it's easy to understand. And now, on the other hand of the spectrum, we have recycling. Recycling is something that I strongly believe that our education systems should try to educate more about, because recycling is something that has a lot of rules that a lot of people don't know about, and that's an issue with it. Because each day I work at Walt Disney World, there'll be guests that are recycling things that are not recyclable, and they'll put it in the recycling bin. And what happens whenever that recycling bin gets contaminated is that the entire thing has to be trashed and it has to go to a landfill. This wouldn't happen as much if we educated our youth about recycling and composting, because there wouldn't be as much food waste in the recycling bin, because whenever food waste ends up in the recycling bin, it all has to be trashed. Now, with recycling, there's a lot of rules. Like I said, you're not allowed to recycle plastic cutlery. You're not allowed to recycle food. If you recycle food, then the entire bin has to get trashed because it becomes contaminated with food waste. And food waste can be composted. So there's another place for it to go that can still be beneficial. It just can't be recycled. And about 28% of the food in America can be composted, but we just don't compost that much because it's not publicly available. Another thing that I think about along with education is that our public availability to these things. Food waste and recycling facilities are not super common in the United States, especially where I'm from. I'm from West Virginia. You're all, I'm assuming, are from West Virginia as well. How often do you see recycling facilities? How often do you see composting facilities? Not super often. It's not readily available to our public, and we often see trash on the side of the streets. Not great. We need to make a much, much, much stronger effort to educate our youth and make these facilities more accessible to people. Especially in West Virginia, a lot of people do not have the money that they need to pay for their own recycling services. A lot of people do not have the amount of land that they need to have their own composting machines in their backyards. A lot of people don't need their own composting machines because a lot of people do not farm. A lot of people do not have gardens that they tend to, but other things do. We have massive amounts of land in America that we're growing food on, but we're growing the food in a way that just isn't great for our land. It's over salinizing the soil, it is drying out the soil, and it is eroding the soil. Those are all bad things that lead to just like not good crop output, and eventually it'll just drain out the soil so much to the point where it's just not easy to use anymore. It's happened in a lot of ancient societies that we can look back at. It's happened to the Easter Islanders, it's happened to the Maya, it's happened to the Norse, it's happened everywhere across the entire world. We need to learn from our mistakes and educate our youth and put these facilities in places that are easier to access for everybody, and just make sure that we're being more mindful of where we put our trash. Because even though a lot of people will say it's up to the big corporations, it's the big corporations who are at fault. Well, who are supporting these corporations? We are supporting these corporations. We are the consumers that are allowing these corporations to continue causing harm to our land. It's very important that we take that into consideration, and that it's not just up to the consumers, the producers. The producers are not just going to stop because we want them to stop. The producers are going to stop whenever they stop making money off of us. So we need to advocate and think about, next time we vote, who wants to implement policies that allow for environmental protection, who wants to monitor our waste management better, and who wants to educate about waste management. It is so, so, so vital for us.